guys, welcome to Sasha Back to Russia. So I got some amazing news that I wish to share with you guys, and I look forward to what the future holds. Not many of you know that I was an aircraft technician back in the States, and S7 Airlines asked me to join them in their team, which is amazing. So I look forward to that. I had the interview last Friday, and look forward to what the response is. So I will keep you guys posted. But this is an amazing outcome, and I look forward to what the next steps are going to be. And today is a special day. We're over here at the Park Museum, and I'm going to show you some of the coolest planes. We're going to discuss everything from World War II era all the way to modern. So we're going to hit a couple places, but I'll flip this around. So first things first, over here we have the Il-2 Sturmovik. There were over 40,000 of these produced. It is the most mass-produced aircraft still to date in the history of military aircraft. Nothing's come close. There might have been a couple other aircraft, but this stands alone in its own right, still holding the record to this day. So it was unique in the fact that it was an anti-tank, basically a ground attack aircraft. So it was, the Germans would call it the Black Death. It would be armored up to 2 inches plate in certain areas. So the landing gear was quite wide apart, so it was not too difficult to land. So Tri would be in front, and then this would be a tail dragger. So inline engine, single pilot in the front, and then of course you got the tail gunner to prevent the Jerrys from coming in and trying to wreck this thing to pieces. Didn't work out so well for them, but this is just an amazing aircraft. It is probably one of my favorites. Now this particular model is actually modified, so you can tell that it doesn't have a tail gunner position, but there was what is called the Il-2M, and it would actually be an elongated cockpit section. In any case, it was so widely made and such a popular, is quite popular with the crews, that they even made Il-10, which served all the way up until the Korean War. Now this over here, when the Soviet Union was attacked on June 22nd, 1941, during Operation Barbarossa, Soviet Air Force didn't entirely have the best quality aircraft at that time. When these airplanes came out, they were elite. You know, I-16s, for example, and I-153s were pretty decent, but by World War II standards, or 1941, they were quite obsolete, so it was not a fair fight, but you had to do with what you had. Still an impressive radial engine. Again, tail dragger, biplane. I'll show you the I-16 a little later, but this right here is the I-15, E-15, E-15. So it's an incredible little airplane. As you can tell, it's obviously got some fabric mixed in with some metal for the cowling. So open cockpit. Lots of pilots back in the early stages liked the idea of having an open cockpit so they could feel the air and feel a little bit freedom. But as you will tell later, or as you can see later, later variant aircraft would have an enclosed cockpit. Over here, this is really unique. This is really something special. You won't see this anywhere else. So it's called a DI-6 fighter. Now this is interesting because it actually has a semi-closed back section with the tail gunner compartment. So basically like a I-15, except a little bit slightly bigger biplane. I have to do some more research on this particular aircraft. It is unique. I've seen it in books, but to see it in actual life, it's really something. This right here is the I-16 Rada, which is basically, I did a little blog about this little fighter. So it was first introduced back in the 30s, I would say early 30s, mid 30s, not early 30s. And it was well and ahead of its time. First things first, it was a monoplane with an enclosed cockpit when the first variant came out, and it was the first one with a retractable landing gear. With later variants, as they added more armor, more armaments, it got a little bit better and better, but again, by World War II standards, it was quite obsolete. There was an instance where these were used to ram German bombers, so if you get a chance to read about it, it's really a famous little fighter, but quite an amazing. There was at least 27 different types, so there was I-16 Type 1, Type 5, Type 7, Type 9, Type all the way up to 27, probably even more, including one with a ski, so you could land this thing in the snow or on ice in certain places, and so. But yeah, quite an impressionable little fighter, and really somewhat popular with the crews. They say that it was hard to handle, but once you got a hold of it, then you know, as far as maneuverability, it was quite good. Just a lack of speed. Though when it first came out, it was the fastest. Just got superseded by BF-109. It proved itself in the beginning stages during the Spanish Civil War, and then it unfortunately was the BF-109 or the ME-109 was introduced. It was found to be a little bit slightly outclassed. So Russia had to quickly make up with MiG and Yaks and Lavochkin fighters, which we'll see here. Now, normally when people think of Sukhoi, they think of like Su-27 or some of the coolest fighters out there, but it actually started off with the Su-2, and as you can tell, this is a ground attack. So this is what preceded or was before the Il-2 Sturmovik. It had a little bit of a slight difficult history because it was difficult to handle. It wasn't as maneuverable, wasn't as armored. Of course, you had the radial engine in the front. Beautiful aircraft all in all, great design, but this is what started the whole introduction to the Sukhoi, was the Su-2. So who would have thought that they would have started with a ground attack and end up with one of the finest fighters up to date, even up to Su-57 fifth generation, which is amazing. But yep, this is the Su-2, Sukhoi 2. Absolute phenomenal aircraft. And you can tell that there's a consistency that all these aircraft, they seem to have wide landing gears. So if you want to land in rough terrain, if you want to land off of rough strips, bomber cratered runways, you need to have wide landing gears. It makes it easier for you to land and chances for your aircraft to survive. And a lot of them were quite robustly built, so they were easily put together, but really, really nice overall. So this is the Su-2. Now this is one of my personal favorites. So this is, we will double check. It is the Ilyushin Il-4. You know, who would have thought that Il-2 or Ilyushin would have, you know, created the bomber along with the Il-2. So here you had a ground attack and a twin-engine bomber. There is the Il-3 and then of course Il-4, so, or DB-3 and then Il-4. If you get a chance to see the movie called Kryli na Berlinem, I believe that one had a DB-3 or the early Il-4 variant, kind of a snub-nosed deal, but it's the same bomber, and you'll have an idea how it was crewed. So what made this interesting or kind of unique is that there was a single pilot at the very, very top. But if you look closely in the bombardier section, I will try to zoom in and see if I can get you guys a better video here real quick. But where the bombardier would sit, he also had the ability to be a second pilot if he needed to. So he would just pull out a joystick, stick it in the ground, and then you had yourself a second pilot in command. So the primary pilot would of course be in the top section, but if a bombardier had to take over the aircraft because for whatever reason the pilot was incapacitated, he also had the ability. So for just to slightly, I guess, bust the myth that this was only piloted by a single pilot and no one else, well, just go and check out the movie and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So interesting to note that of course it had, you know, a frontal gunner. So the bombardier was basically in charge of three things. He was a secondary pilot, he was in charge of dropping the bombs, and also if he needed to, he could also take over the guns. What's also interesting is you can't really see it unless they open. Yep, they do have it open. In the rear section there is a gunner, and he could stick that machine gun and yank it out. Of course, it would just going to be a free-for-all, but he would also have the ability to shoot back at the enemy in case they decide to approach from the rear. So it didn't have a rear gunner, but it had an underbelly, and I believe there was also a top gunner. Let me double check. I'll come around. Yes, it's right in the, it's exactly as I remember, right here. So you had top protection, front protection, underbelly protection. You dropped the bombs, and then you went straight home. So there was one bomber that actually was a long range. This is considered intermediate range because of the twin engine, but there was one variant that I would love to see one day be restored, and that's the PE at Petlikov. But Il-4 will do, of course, for now. So this is really, really unique. You can actually see one here and then also at the Menina Air Museum. So if you ever get a chance to check that other museum out, please do.